What if your dream home, the perfect place to start a new life, was hiding a secret? What if beneath the fresh paint and idyllic facade lay an echo of an unspeakable crime? Tonight, we're digging into one of the most famous and debated hauntings in American history. The claim that a quiet house on Long Island became a gateway for demonic forces. In 1975, the Lutz family believed they'd found paradise at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. It was beautiful, spacious, and sold for a price that seemed too good to be true. And it was. Just 13 months earlier, the house was the scene of a horrific mass murder. The Lutzes would flee after only 28 days, launching a story of paranormal terror that has captivated the world for decades. This story made millions. It destroyed reputations. And it may have all been a lie. To understand what supposedly happened to the Lutz family, you first have to understand what happened to the DeFeo family. The story of the Amityville haunting doesn't begin with ghosts. It begins with a real-life tragedy. In 1965, the DeFeos moved into 112 Ocean Avenue. From the outside, with a sign in the yard that reads High Hopes, they looked like the model American family. But inside, the family patriarch, Big Ron, was known to be abusive and domineering, creating a powder keg of tension. That tension finally exploded in the pre-dawn hours of November 13, 1974. 23-year-old Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. walked room to room with a rifle and shot 6 family members while they slept face down in their beds. His parents, his 4 younger siblings. The next evening, Butch DeFeo ran into a local bar, screaming that he had found his family murdered. But his story crumbled under police questioning, and within 48 hours, he had confessed. Once I started, I just couldn't stop, he reportedly told police. It went so fast. At his trial, his lawyer mounted an insanity defense. DeFeo claimed he heard demonic voices in the house urging him to kill. The jury didn't buy it. He was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder. For 13 months, the house on Ocean Avenue, now stained by its violent history, sat empty. Years later, shortly before his death in prison in 2021, Ronald DeFeo Jr. offered one last chilling clarification. He recanted his stories of demonic influence and stated simply, there was no demon. I was the demon. In December 1975, George and Kathy Lutz, a newly married couple with 3 children, bought the house. It was their dream home. And at $80,000, a price drastically reduced because of the murders, it was a steal. They were fully aware of its dark past, but they saw a new beginning. They moved in on December 18, 1975, purchasing the house along with some of the leftover DeFeo family furniture for $400. Their story, which would become the basis for a best-selling book and a massive film franchise, claimed The terror began almost immediately. At the suggestion of a friend, they decided to have the house blessed by a Catholic priest. A family friend named Father Ralph Pecoraro. As the priest sprinkled holy water in an upstairs bedroom, he said a deep voice growled, "Get out!" Then he claimed something invisible struck him across the face. He allegedly warned the Lutzes to avoid that specific room, but the family's ordeal was only just beginning. What followed, according to the Lutzes' account, was a 28-day descent into supernatural chaos. They chronicled a litany of terrifying and inexplicable events. George Lutz began waking up every morning at 3:15 a.m., later claimed to be the estimated time of the DeFeo murders. The house was plagued by strange, sickening odors and cold spots that no fire could warm. Unexplained green slime would ooze from the walls and keyholes. Then it escalated. The garage door opened and slammed shut on its own. A knife was violently thrown in the kitchen. Kathy Lutz claimed to be embraced by an unseen force and even to have levitated in her sleep. Their young daughter, Missy, developed an imaginary friend she called Jody, described as a demonic, red-eyed, pig-like creature that would appear outside the windows. The family reported swarms of flies appearing in the house, despite the dead of winter. In the basement, they discovered a tiny hidden room painted blood red. They called it the Red Room. And that's when things stopped feeling explainable. On their final night, George claimed he was kept awake by the sound of beds slamming on the floors above. On January 14, 1976, after just 28 days, the Lutzes fled in terror, leaving almost everything behind. If you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And it lets me keep diving into stories like this every week. And hit the bell so you don't miss the next case. After the Lutzes fled, the story attracted some of the most famous paranormal investigators of the era, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens, a self-described demonologist and a clairvoyant medium, entered the house with a television crew to conduct an investigation. Lorraine reported feeling an overwhelming demonic presence, while Ed claimed to feel a sinister force pushing down on him. Their involvement lent a veneer of professional paranormal credibility to the story. The investigation produced one of the most iconic pieces of evidence from the case. A photograph of a so-called ghost boy peeking from a doorway. For believers, this was irrefutable proof. The image, captured on an infrared film, shows a small figure with glowing white eyes. However, skeptics have since pointed out that the ghost bears a striking resemblance to one of the Warrens' own investigators, a man named Paul Bartz, who was present that night and may have been kneeling on the floor. The glowing eyes could simply be a reflection from the infrared film. Interestingly, despite their heavy association with Amityville in popular culture, the Warrens never actually met the Lutz family during this period. Their investigation was conducted after the family had already left, making their role more of a media event than a direct part of the Lutzes' experience. The story of Amityville and the Amityville Horror has been debated for decades. Is it a chilling tale of a family tormented by the echoes of a mass murder, or a carefully constructed narrative for fame and fortune? It brings up a lot of questions, and we want to know what you think. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain in an old house? Let us know in the comments below. Just as the legend of Amityville was solidifying, the entire story began to fall apart. Every piece of supposed evidence there is a rational and scientific or psychological explanation. And the first blow came from an unlikely source. Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s own defense attorney, William Weber. Then, in 1979, the entire story cracked open. In People magazine, he said something that changed everything. "I know this book is a hoax. We created this horror story over many bottles of wine." According to Weber, he and the Lutzes deliberately fabricated the story. His motive was to bolster a potential appeal for his client, and theirs was purely financial. With Weber's confession, journalists and skeptics began to look closer, and the story crumbled. The cloven hoof prints George Lutz claimed to have found in the snow on New Year's Day? Weather records for that day in Amityville show there was no snowfall. The terrifying red room in the basement? It was just a small, mundane storage closet under the stairs, a common feature in that style of house. The claims that the house was built on a Shinnecock burial ground, or that a previous owner was a Satanist, were both proven to be entirely false. The priest, Father Pecoraro, became a point of major contradiction. While he told some reporters he heard a voice, he later testified under oath during a lawsuit that his only contact with the family had been by phone, and he had never experienced anything supernatural in that house. Perhaps the most damning evidence is the simplest. Since the Lutzes fled in 1976, multiple families have lived in 112 Ocean Avenue. And in nearly 50 years since, not a single family has reported anything paranormal. If it was a hoax, why did the Lutzes stick to their story? And what about the children? The answers may lie in a complicated mix of money, trauma, and the power of suggestion. The legal battles that followed revealed a clear profit motive, with contracts for book and movie royalties presented as evidence in court. This wasn't just a story, it was a lucrative business. But the most tragic figure in this story might be the eldest son, Daniel Lutz. In a 2013 documentary, a visibly disturbed adult, Daniel, recounts his version of the events. He speaks of genuine terror, but he also makes new claims alleging his father, George, was an abusive man and dabbled in the occult himself, potentially inviting dark forces into the home. Daniel's trauma appears very real. But was it caused by demonic spirits or by a tumultuous home life, a domineering stepfather, and the immense psychological pressure of being at the center of a global media firestorm? It provides a simple answer to a huge question. Why was their life in that house so horrible? Maybe because the real monsters weren't ghosts. So here we are, caught between a terrifying legend and a mountain of contradictory evidence. On one hand, you have a story built on an undisputed and horrific mass murder. You have a family that for 28 days claimed to experience hell on earth. You have thousands of passionate believers, and you have a few unsettling details that are hard to dismiss. If it was entirely a hoax, why did both George and Kathy Lutz pass polygraph tests in 1979, administered by top experts, where they affirmed to their claims? While not infallible, it adds a layer of complexity. On the other hand, you have science and reason. You have the confession of a lawyer who helped create the story. You have simple explanations for debunked claims, a clear trail from financial trouble to a best-selling book, and a psychological understanding of why our brains are so quick to find monsters in the shadows. And you have a theory that can fuel real harm by exploiting a genuine tragedy for profit. Was the house at 112 Ocean Avenue truly haunted by an ancient evil tied to the DeFeo murders? Or is this just a theory, the ultimate projection of our own anxieties, a modern myth we created to make sense of the world where real-life horror often feels random and senseless? In a house stained by real blood, the line between reality and fiction blurred. The Amityville house may not be haunted, but the story built inside it still is. And sometimes, the scariest thing isn't a demon in the walls. It's a lie people want you to believe.